Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive on Next Energy Technologies.
Okay.
They're making some pretty big waves with their transparent solar window technology, and we're going to see if maybe there's a way to invest in this private company by looking at a company that is publicly traded.
Interesting.
And the companies we're looking at today are Apogee Enterprises and, of course, Next Energy Technologies. And the sources for today's deep dive are the company websites for Apogee and Next Energy Technologies, and of course some financial reports and stock analysis.
Right.
So Next Energy, they've got this technology, and it's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild.
It's windows that generate energy. How cool is that?
Yeah, so what's really cool about this is that they're able to create these windows, and recently they unveiled the world's largest fully transparent OPV window, which is a huge leap forward.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So for people who might not know about solar windows,
Right.
can you explain what Next Energy is doing and why it's so important?
Yeah, so Next Energy Technologies has developed this transparent photovoltaic coating,
Yeah.
and it's called OPV.
Okay.
And essentially, it's this thin film that you can apply to windows, and it's pretty much invisible to the naked eye.
Oh, wow.
But what's amazing is that it allows the window to capture sunlight,
Yeah.
and then it converts that sunlight into electricity.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine like your entire building facade just generating clean energy.
Yeah, that's pretty futuristic.
Yeah.
So how can someone like me invest in this?
Well, that's where it gets interesting because Next Energy Technologies is a privately held company.
Okay.
So you can't just go out and buy stock in them.
Okay.
But there is potentially a way to get in on this.
Okay, what do
So there's this company called Apogee Enterprises,
Mm-hmm.
and they're publicly traded on the NASDAQ,
Okay.
and their ticker symbol is APA.
Got it.
Now, Apogee Enterprises has a subsidiary called Viricon,
Yeah.
and Viricon is a strategic investor in Next Energy Technologies.
So you're saying if I buy Apogee, I can indirectly invest in Next Energy.
That's right. That's exactly right. And what makes this even more interesting is that some analysts believe that Apogee might be undervalued.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what makes them say that? What makes them think that Apogee is a good value right now?
So there are a couple things. So Apogee's price to sales ratio, it's currently 0.77.
Okay.
So essentially for every dollar of Apogee sales, you're only paying 77 cents for the stock,
Interesting.
which is pretty low.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, and it suggests that the market may be underestimating Apogee's true value.
Okay. Are there any other clues that suggest that Apogee is undervalued?
Yeah, they also have a strong current ratio at 1.63,
Okay.
which means they have plenty of liquid assets to cover any short-term liabilities.
That sounds good.
It's a good sign.
It does sound good.
Yeah, and then on top of that, they have a very high return on equity.
Which is good. That means they're profitable.
It's a very good sign.
So
Yeah.
they're profitable, and then they also have this thing called Project Fortify, which I know is their initiative to streamline their operations.
Yeah, and that's actually projected to generate savings between $12 and $14 million annually.
Wow, and that should boost their bottom line, which should make them even more attractive to investors.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we have this potentially undervalued company that has a strong track record
Yes.
and a stake in this potentially revolutionary technology.
Yeah.
So does that mean by buying Apogee stock at its current price, we are essentially getting a piece of Next Energy's future for free?
That's a compelling argument.
I like the sound of that. But before we jump into that too much,
Sure.
I think it's important to take a closer look at some of the risks
Yeah.
that are involved with Apogee.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah,
There's no investment without risk.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So what are some of those risks?
Well, one thing to consider is that they have seen a recent decline in consolidated net sales.
Right.
And that's something to be aware of. Declining sales, it can be a red flag for any business.
Definitely.
Correct.
What's causing that for them?
Well, it's partly due to just broader economic conditions, things that are affecting the construction industry.
Right.
It's a cyclical sector.
Yeah, it goes up and down.
Yeah, and recently things haven't been so favorable.
Right. So are there any internal factors contributing to that, or is it just kind of the economy?
Well, there are some restructuring costs
Right.
associated with Project Fortify.
Right.
So that could be impacting their short-term financial performance.
Sure. Makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to spend money to make money sometimes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to take a step back to leap forward.
And it adds a layer of complexity for investors, for sure.
Definitely. It's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
While these restructuring efforts are expected to have a lot of long-term benefits,
Right.
investors still have to consider what's going to happen in the short term.
And we also can't forget that Apogee is, in the construction industry.
Right.
And that can be really vulnerable when the economy takes a downturn.
For sure. Economic cycles and fluctuations in construction spending can directly impact Apogee's performance.
Right. So it sounds like we have this potentially undervalued company,
Yeah.
strong track record, stake in a revolutionary technology,
Yeah.
but also facing some challenges.
Right.
So what's the bottom line for our listeners out there?
Well,
How do we know if this is a good investment or not?
that's really where your own research and risk tolerance come into play.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to dig deep into Apogee's financials, understand their market position, and think about your own investment goals.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with the risks that come with a cyclical industry and these short-term fluctuations?
So put on your detective hats, everybody.
That's right.
Where should they start?
I would say the best place to start is Apogee's investor relations website.
Okay.
You're going to find SEC filings, annual
ahead.
reports, all kinds of news releases, presentations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really a goldmine of information for anybody that's serious about understanding the company.
And beyond that, I imagine you can look at analyst reports and industry publications.
Absolutely. You want to look at all of it.
Yeah.
Compare them to their competitors.
Right. So really get the full picture.
The more information, the better.
Yeah. So as our listeners are evaluating Apogee,
Oh.
what are some key questions they should be asking themselves?
All right, so here are a few thought-provoking questions.
Okay.
So first, how confident are you in Next Energy Technologies and their ability to really capture a significant share of the solar window market?
Right. Because if Next Energy takes off,
Yeah,
that could be huge for Apogee.
exactly. And then second, how does Apogee's financial health really stack up against its competitors in the architectural glass industry?
Right.
Are they in a good position to weather economic storms and capitalize on any growth opportunities that pop up?
Mm-hmm. And I imagine the last question is, are you comfortable with the level of risk
Yeah,
associated with a company in the construction industry?
exactly. By honestly answering these questions and doing your research, you'll be able to make a much more informed decision about whether Apogee Enterprises is right for you and your risk tolerance and your investing strategy.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
We've talked about the potential and the pitfalls of investing in Apogee Enterprises. But before we wrap up, we should probably say again that we are not financial advisors.
That's right. This deep dive is for informational purposes only.
Mhm.
Always make sure to do your research and consult with a financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Yeah, it really makes you think, doesn't it? How all these different companies can be connected in ways you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, it's all about, seeing those connections and understanding how everything fits together.
Right.
It's bigger than just Apogee and Next Energy.
Yeah.
This is a trend that's just going to keep growing.
You're talking about sustainable technologies, right?
Exactly. Sustainability is not just a niche market anymore. It's not just some feel-good thing. It's reshaping everything.
Seems like every industry is trying to be more sustainable.
Yeah, construction, energy manufacturing, transportation, everything.
They can see it everywhere. Consumers want eco-friendly products, governments are giving incentives, and investors are looking for opportunities.
That's right. And it's creating all these opportunities for anyone who can spot the companies that are going to do well in this shift to a more sustainable future.
Like the Inflation Reduction Act. Right?
Exactly, with the tax credits for things like Next Energy's OPV.
Yeah, that's a big incentive for companies to use this kind of technology.
For sure. Policies like that are driving demand and helping the companies that are developing these sustainable solutions.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
It is.
It's good for the environment, it encourages innovation, and it gives investors some great opportunities.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
Here's a question for you to think about.
Okay.
What other hidden doorways are out there? What other companies that you wouldn't expect could be a way to invest in sustainable technology?
It's like a treasure hunt.
It is.
You got to look beyond what's obvious.
Yeah, the more you learn, the better choices you can make. And who knows, maybe you'll find your next big investment.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everybody. As always, remember to do your research, talk to a financial advisor, and invest wisely.